The problem is a lot of times when people get married, I've seen that they feel like marriage is the solution to fix all those problems. But a lot of times it exacerbates those problems. The problem, in that close proximity of a relationship, they get
magnifies,
worse.
Yeah,
it magnifies. So no one should think that by getting married, I mean, some problems will be solved, obviously, but to think like fundamental core issues of relationship problems will just go away. It might seem that way in the beginning because you feel good with this person, but it's kind of it's a temporary euphoria, and those problems they haven't gone away. You just forgot about them, and they'll surface. So that's extremely important. It's just people have to be prepared for being extremely flexible and working and learning, and not just going in and go, this is the way it's going to be, and you're going to be this way, and I'm going to be this way. Life doesn't work that way.
And sometimes those people who think, no, it has to be like this, and maybe they rejected several relationships, or they messed up some relationships, they were too judgmental about their parents, somehow or another end up with spouses who are way more difficult than their previous relationship or the parents. And then they're forced to become flexible.
Yeah.
They're forced to adjust more, and that maybe is one way that
hopefully
deals.
Yeah, hopefully they'll realize it after a few failures. But people don't always. Sometimes they don't, unfortunately. There's a certain kind of person who just is really difficult for them to admit faults. So they'll have the same problem in one relationship after another, and they'll always blame it on the person. Most people after a while will realize, oh, if it's repeating itself, I must have something to do with it. But some people won't. It's their nature. It's difficult to admit, and that's unfortunate.
And there's also the other problem, the other side of the side of the coin, of being flexible and then not being flexible. Some people are too flexible.
They don't care.
They're just like, okay for everything, whatever for everything. And it can be difficult, especially if a man is like that. It can be difficult to live with a man who has challenges to take a stand. Like you ask him, what would you like for lunch? Dosha or idli? Or pizza or whatever you ask him. He's like, whatever. He's always like that. And in life, anything happens, like you decide. It can be annoying to be with someone who's too flexible.
Don't marry a man from Southern California or Australia, because they'll be like that. You need some predictability. Yeah.
Someone you can rely, okay, he says something and he really means that.
But it's funny because let's say a woman meets a man and her former relationship, or her father, let's say, was very inflexible. And now she meets a man, what do you want? Dosa, idli, pizza, veggie burger. Whatever you want is fine. And she's thinking, I've never had a person that's so easygoing. I love this. And so the very thing that she's attracted to, a few years later, she'll be upset. She's so indecisive. So that's something to consider. The thing that you like may end up being, because you were rejecting something that was on the other extreme. Now you really like this on the other extreme, and you don't realize that actually you'll need something more in the middle that's more reliable. But that's hard to tell when you're young.
Like I know a friend who loved people who were joking all the time, humorous. So then she married this guy who was always funny, always cracking jokes. And everyone knew you can never take him seriously. Whatever he says, you know that it's a joke. So she got married to him because she was really attracted to that. Then years later, that's the very thing that really she's irritated. She's like, he's never serious, he never takes responsibility, he's always joking around.
And it's difficult to know that would end up like that.
Yeah.
That's why we need guidance from experienced people who can say, wait a minute, you like this now, but you imagine, 15 years of this, he's like never serious. How's that going? Oh, yeah, maybe not. But then the next question would be is, what do you do? Now you're married. You didn't know. And then...
Yeah, there's two divisions, I guess.
And there's I think a big problem is that we're counting so much on our marriage to make us happy that when we end up in a situation like this, for example, then it becomes extremely difficult because he was the one I thought that was going to make me happy. Now I'm being irritated by the very thing that's going to make me happy. And for a lot of people, it's really hard to stick it out like that because, this was going to be the thing that was really going to make your life special.
How do we draw the boundary? Where do we draw the line in understanding what is trying to get along in harmony and what is codependency? Codependency basically is something like, if you are happy, if I see you smiling, then I can be happy. Otherwise, my life is miserable. Mm-hmm. So living in a way that try to please everyone around me, try to make my parents happy, try to make my friends happy, try to make my spouse happy, and just not be in touch with my own needs.
When we talk about needs, no devotee is that selfish that they would turn the whole world off just to fulfill their own needs. But in fulfilling their own needs, they're stabilizing and grounding themselves so that they can fulfill the needs of others. So it's just out of balance. If I neglect my needs to serve you, then I won't be able to serve you very well after a while, because I have to maintain myself physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Mm-hmm. So we see that this is very clear when someone neglects their sadhana and how they lose their spiritual potency. But you can apply it emotionally and physically also. Obviously, we know if we don't take care of our health, we can't be very functional. So the same way our emotional health, whatever it is we need, not excessively, but what we need to be stable, then we are in an optimal position to serve others. I know I have godbrothers who are very strict about what they do in the morning because they're nourishing themselves. They have, when we talk about needs, it doesn't seem so bad when you say, oh, I need to chant 25 rounds or I need to read 3 hours. No one's going to think that's something personal and selfish. But when someone says I have an emotional need to fulfill or physical need, it sounds more selfish. But in many cases, it's not really much different. It's just this is what is needed for me to be stable. And no one really wants to be married to someone who's not stable, who's always clinging on to you and can't stand up themselves.
I like the hole in the ball analogy. Yeah. I would say it's both men and women. There are men who tend to give too much priority to the wife's happiness, that they tend to neglect their own spiritual life, their own, and there are, women tend to go more towards the codependency than men, but men also. Yeah. So how to avoid that codependency? Because especially the philosophy sometimes may appear like suppress your needs. Yeah. Try to focus, being selfless means to forget about your needs.
For devotees' needs are very simple. And so we all have needs. I think that maybe the controversy would be about emotional needs. I don't think physical, you need 6 hours, he needs 7, he needs 7.5. You need a cup of dal and 2 chapatis, he needs 2 cups and 3. Nobody has a problem with that. We understand that. And as I said, the spiritual doesn't seem to be a problem. It's the emotional. And I think men probably have more of a problem of understanding that and might think that's more mine. But what I've learned being married is that when my wife voices certain needs, if I try to fight it and say, well, you shouldn't have that, or why do you have that, and that's not Krishna conscious, it doesn't work. And I see it like saying, if you said to me, I'm hungry, and I say, but we just ate 2 hours, you're not supposed to be hungry. And you say, but I am, and I say, but you shouldn't be. So we're having this conversation, it's going nowhere. So you're saying, in the same way, I have a need for this, and I say, well, you shouldn't have. If you're Krishna conscious, you wouldn't have this need, all right, but I have it. So a man has to be able to recognize that. And we see for most women, it's just certain needs that they have, or even men, that once they fulfill them, that it's not like they're going overboard in sense gratification. This is what they need to be grounded.
But as you said, it kind of boils down to that respect and understanding the other person, and understanding the nature. Yeah. Because when we do that, then all the other practical things becomes easier.
Well, yes. And if you're getting married, if you're a man and you're getting married, to have your wife as your servant, and if you're a woman, if you're getting married, to have your husband as your Prince Charming who endows you with all the luxuries of life, that's when you run into problems. Because then when you don't get it, you'll rather than respecting and serving them, you're just waiting for them to give. And it doesn't work that way. So a lot of people enter a relation, like I said, a weaker person who's not fulfilled, then they enter the relationship like that. Expecting these things, and that's going to fulfill them.